Good day, everybody. In today's content, we will be breaking down the bull run targets for Telcoin. Do stay tuned. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So before I start with the technicals, Telcoin makes US banking history with the approval to launch the first regulated digital asset bank. Charter approval allows Telcoin Digital Asset Bank to establish a bridge between traditional banking and decentralized finance, including the creation of EUSD as the nation's first bank issued stablecoin. Fantastic news. Congratulations to the team. Congratulations to holders. If you've been holding through the grit, it all feels worth it. And I do feel like this is going to be one of the major catalysts to send Telcoin to our bull run targets. Now, alongside this great news, we also had a listing alert from Uphold that have now listed Telcoin as well. So I do believe this may be a snowball effect, especially as Telcoin has got the approval to launch the digital asset bank. I think exchanges are going to follow suit with this, and this will be a perfect storm to really get the charts moving here for Telcoin. So fantastic news on that front. Now let's head over to the chart. We're looking at the monthly time frame here. A few things to note, because I've been covering Telcoin for a very long time, and I've had these bull run targets for quite some time. Now I think Telcoin has the potential to push towards 20 cents this cycle. And the reason, and well, kind of how I've managed to get that target is a few ways of actually looking at this. So when we look at the Fibonacci extensions here, going from the cycle low, which was back down here on multi-year ascending support in December of 2023, retracing back to the all-time high, the first sort of price discovery target once the all-time high is cleared, I'll get into resistance and stuff in a little while. The 1272 after breaking the all-time high is my potential target for this cycle. And I do think that what that would tie up with is a potential run back up to this multi-year ascending resistance. So from current sort of prices, you know, we're looking at a rough sort of 34x here for Telcoin. And there's something very interesting about the 1272 Fibonacci, because if we go from this local low here in December of 2020, retracing back to the sort of inception of Telcoin in 2018, and we get our labels over to the left, you'll notice that Telcoin actually topped out at the 1272 Fib, which in the last cycle was roughly at 0.03. Okay, so roughly at 3 cents. And you can see the candle closes were near enough bang on the 1272 Fibonacci. So going from the December low of 2020, retracing back to the prior sort of high from February 18, this rally topped out at the 1272 Fib extension. The candle closes anyway. We did have a bit of an overshoot, but you can see the candle closes initially fell on the 1272. Now this also created this multi-year level of ascending resistance. So that's just one way of me looking at the potential targets for Telcoin. It's met its 1272 in the past. We now have the digital asset bank approval. We have exchange listings, and we're bouncing off a key level of support. So I do think that 34x from current prices is a very doable target for Telcoin. Now, let's get the fibs off for a second and look at this price action right now. So we have the multi-year ascending resistance, which is missing a point of contact. And that again leads me to believe the fact that we've had 3 points of contact on this multi-year ascending support, which was actually created sort of in 2019. We had a point of contact in April 2020, another POC in December 2020. We marked the low for this cycle in December 2023. November 2024 was a low, and again, November 2025. So there is some sort of history here to look at in regards to Q4 for Telcoin, because again, December 2020 marked the low before the massive rally. If we come over to December 2023, it marked the low before retracing back again into sort of November, December, and then getting another rally. So at this moment in time, I do believe Telcoin is just gearing up, building higher lows on this multi-year ascending support, looking for a major breakout. Now, there is a very key level of resistance I would like to see Telcoin break in order to start pushing up towards the all-time high. And it sits roughly at around 1 cent, okay, which is these previous highs from March of 2025. We also ran into this level of resistance in March 2022. So this is the strong area of resistance we need to break in order to see that catapult back up to all-time highs. Now, if I get the fib back on again, and we look at resistance levels on the fibs, there's some confluence here with this level. So the key levels of resistance, again, as I said, roughly between 1 cent, roughly at 1 cent. The main block that we need to see broken is between 0.007 and 1 cent, roughly. Okay, so that is the main block of resistance. Once you could see as well, if I remove this red box and I remove this price tag, Telcoin ran up to the 0.618 on the 1st of February. And this is where it printed a local top before coming into this correction. Ever since then, and when it actually came back to its key moving averages here, we have the 20-month EMA and the 55. It's been holding them as support. It ran into the 0.50 after failing to break out. And then after that, it corrected for 3 months back down into November, where we actually had a point of contact on this multi-year ascending support. So the timing of these events is very ironic. Again, November, December has historically marked some bottoms for Telcoin. Initially, it's ran into resistance from those bottoms on the way up to the all-time high, but this structure over the last sort of year has brought Telcoin back down to a key level of support. And again, the timing of the events with the digital bank and with the listings has occurred right in the period where Telcoin sees a bounce. So I think it's a little ironic here. But again, there is resistance above. It's fantastic news. We do need to see 0.007 broken. And once that's broke, you have 0.012 at the golden ratio in order to start getting back to this all-time high and then eventually entering price discovery targets at 21 cents. Now, there is also the 1414, which sits roughly at 40 cents. And you can see that that does have some sort of confluence with this multi-year ascending resistance. So for me, I think the candle closes could occur sometime in 2026 around 21 cents, but we may see the wick up to 40 cents. If you remember in the previous fib, we did close the candles at the 1272, but I think the 1414 was met in this wick overshoot. So there is a potential here. My targets sit between 21 to 40 cents, and to really get that ball rolling, we need to see 0.007/0.012 broken. Now, there is a short-term target, and the way I think Telcoin is actually going to get back up to this all-time high, if I remove these drawings right now, what it looks like is Tel is forming some sort of flag structure. Okay, where it's actually starting to break out initially of this flag. So we've had this falling wedge for the last sort of year, where Telcoin had this move up, okay? It's been correcting in this wedge, which is a bullish reversal pattern, by the way. And we have this sort of flagpole. So how we can measure this move is by copying or cloning the flagpole. And now that we've essentially got the breakout, this is potentially the way I see, or the target I see in order to get Telcoin back to that all-time high, or at least back up to these candle closes of roughly 0.03. So again, there's a little bit of confluence here. You had this massive run up. We're in this falling wedge, which is the flag formation. And then this is the flagpole breakout target, and that brings you back to the all-time high. Again, don't forget, we do have that level of resistance above that we need to break. So there could be some chop in between. And ultimately, we do need to see that close or sort of this month above 0.007. I mean, failing that, if Telcoin is just seeing some relief rally off of the news, and, you know, it does roll over with the market, if there's a couple of weeks of correction left heading into December, I've got my eyes on December for a lot of projects, you know, marking the lows or filling in a lot of the like 38 to 50% of their wicks, which a lot of projects have already done. So I think initially what's happening is lows are placed and there's a base build that's going on right now. So Telcoin has this great news, fantastic news, but this green line you can see is the level of resistance, the main level, 0.007, that needs to be broken. However, we do have this flag structure, which potentially brings you back to the all-time high, which would really get the ball rolling. So at this moment in time, I think the macro picture looks absolutely beautiful. And once Telcoin does actually get through this resistance, wherever it may be, if it's, you know, now over the next couple of weeks where it starts to push through, you know, there could be some real FOMO that actually starts to kick in here. And again, this falling wedge pattern that I just showed you, we have got the breakout this week. So everything in my books looks great. And I do think these are the potential targets that Telcoin could reach in the near future. I do like to study preferably the macro timeframes. And we also have, if we look very closely here, you can see that this 20 EMA, the yellow, is attempting to cross over the red. So Telcoin is literally about to print its first monthly golden cross on the macro timeframes. the larger the time frames and the larger these golden cross signals are, basically the longer term outlook is very bullish. Okay, it's a great signal, fantastic signal, and it's one that's not to be ignored. So, you know, on the formation of this cross, we could see some pullback, some chop for a couple of weeks, and then essentially go for the break. If we are to see a retracement, and let's say we have put in a local top just for the short-term period, what I would like to see hold on the retracement is 0.004. In fact, we'll get the 0.382 on as well. Yeah, 0.004. If we do close out quite high and then come back in a little bit for a correction on the weekly, let's have a look at the weekly chart actually. Yeah, if we do start to roll over and come back, 0.004 is roughly where I would like to see hold, and that would, in my eyes, you know, you're really starting to get things into gear, because you've had this massive run up into resistance. If we get this correction for the next few weeks back down to a key level of support, I then think this is where we're going to get the run for Telcoin, starting to push back firstly to the 0.618 and these candle highs of February, and then ultimately back towards the all-time high. So key things to take away, guys. If we have run into resistance at 0.007, between there and 1 cent is the major resistance to break out of. If we do come back after this sort of bullish news, and we don't actually get the continuation here, don't be disheartened. There is support below between 0.0047 and 0.0037. And if we can hold that, regardless of where it comes back to, I honestly think that this news and the FOMO is really going to start kicking in here, and Telcoin is off to the races. So my bull run targets, again, sit between 21 to 40 cents. We have the golden cross that's trying to form on the monthly time frame. Over the last year, we've been in this sort of falling wedge structure, which has now got a clean breakout. And it does look like that we have that sort of flagpole as well, which takes us up to the all-time high. So I have no concerns. Amazing news. Great for holders. If you've managed to hold through all of this chaos, you know, this sideways action, it felt quite harsh, but I think a new chapter has begun. I hope you've enjoyed the content from Chart Nerd TA. Take care. Peace out.